Hello everybody and welcome back to Fintech Week London. I'm Tyler from the Fintech Times, and right now I'm very pleased to say that I'm joined by Richard Fox from the FCA. Richard, how are you?
I'm really well, thank you.
Good. Are you enjoying the event so far?
Yeah, great day so far. Really nice to be back doing it in person.
Yeah, it's good to see a lot of new faces and reconnect with some familiar ones as well.
So, yeah, indeed.
It's been brilliant. Before we get on to our interview and discussing some very major topics, why don't you give our viewers a little bit of insight into who you are and what the FCA is about?
Great. Well, my name's Rich Fox. I'm the current Director of International at the Financial Conduct Authority. We're the UK's markets and conduct regulator, and specifically I'm here today because I've been doing a lot of international work with partners around the globe on how to regulate crypto markets.
That's very interesting, thank you. So, I mean, you've started it off in a fantastic way in regulating crypto. It's obviously a very big topic, as you mentioned, in what we're discussing today at Fintech Week London. But what do you see as the major benefits of cross-collaboration when it comes to trying to regulate something like crypto?
I think more so than other markets, these companies exist on the web 24/7, 365. So I don't think any one country or area can successfully regulate that on their own. So we put quite a lot of stall in international collaboration, working with our partners to set global standards for the regulation of this market.
And in terms of when they're working together, you mentioned that it was something that really required a collaborative approach. What do you think the priorities of that approach are right now?
So there are different groups. So you have the Financial Stability Board, a bit what it says on the tin. They're worried about financial stability and protecting the economy. We play a role in that to bring a securities markets lens. Then at IOSCO, that's the International Organization for Securities Regulators, Capital Markets, and there it's much more about consumer protection and market integrity. And then finally, completing the piece, there's a lot of focus on preventing terrorist financing and money laundering. So the different bodies are focusing on their different remits, and hopefully at the end it will all fit together.
It's very interesting how you say it will fit together. I mean, we've seen a lot of disparities. We were mentioning just off camera before we started about the markets in crypto assets bill. We've recently had the update from the European Union, and that, as you discussed, had taken a very sort of immediate integration approach into it, whereas the UK has taken a more phased approach into it. Which do you think is going to, in the long term, be more successful?
Well, I think there are pros and cons to both. So the advantage of going big bang, like the Europeans, is you get, as a market, all of the regulation all at once. The drawback of that is you don't get the chance to learn and iterate as you go. So from the FCA's point of view, we support the government's approach here to take a phased approach and do this in sort of building blocks, allowing us to learn as we go and engage the market to do the best job we can. So
in that light, I mean, crypto has had a very almost Wild West reputation historically, less so now. But from your perspective in the FCA, what do you see as the next evolution of crypto regulation?
Well, as the government have set out, we're going to be biting that off in chunks. They're going to start with so-called stable coins, where they're used for payments. Then they'll go on to regulate on what we call the unbacked market. Throughout all of that, at the FCA, we'll be focusing on consumer protection, market integrity, because look, it's quite a simple message at the end of the day. At the moment, there are very few protections in place, and if you're going to invest in this market, you need to be prepared to lose all your money.
So what kind of consumer protections will be put in place by the FCA?
What we'll try to draw on is what we have in traditional markets, because there's no reason that these risks are automatically new, they're just happening in a different space. So that's about basics like good disclosure to consumers, management of conflicts of interest, the avoiding of market manipulation. So whilst lots of this market is new, lots of it's the same, and we're quite familiar with working in this space.
And in terms of, we looked at protecting against the volatility of crypto. I mean, this is something that's been very topical within the last few weeks. We've had the market sort of crashing, as it were. On a wider level, what do you see as the FCA's role in protecting consumers against the rising cost of living? I mean, is there any strategies that you have in place to fight against that?
Yeah, we take that really seriously. So most recently we've written to around 3,500 lenders, reminding them of what we expect in terms of how they treat their consumers, particularly those people who are going to get into financial difficulty. But zooming out, this isn't new for us. So I go back to our work on vulnerability, our work through the pandemic on giving guidance to how companies should treat customers in financial difficulty, and in due course we're going to have a consumer duty. So ultimately this is all about financial companies putting the customer at the heart of how they think, and it is only through doing that that people are really going to be treated fairly in what might be a very difficult period to come.
I read up on that, in fact, and how you were trying to promote wider transparency within the lending market, and especially buy now, pay later models was something very, very topical at the moment with the rise of buy now, pay later, which people are turning to manage their finances and to access the funds that they need to meet the rising cost of living. Do you see any other sectors? I mean, we've already discussed lending and crypto, but do you see any other sectors where higher transparency is particularly prevalent?
I think we basically think all financial services firms need to think more deeply about their customers. What do their customers need? What are their circumstances? And then regardless of whether you're selling them an investment or advising on a pension or lending them credit, if you really put the consumer at the heart, then there's a much better chance that you'll get the right outcomes. And that's what our consumer duty is about. It's about raising that bar across the whole industry.
And do you think that regulators are worried about people investing in crypto?
Yes. So again, to repeat our warnings, we have been really clear that basically you should be prepared to lose it all at the moment. These are very high risk investments. The price goes up and down very quickly. It's hard to predict. And you won't have the kind of safety nets you have in other markets, like the Financial Services Compensation Scheme. So people need to go into this basically with their eyes open.
Yes, it's sort of similar in terms of looking at crypto investments and using these alternative financing lending models that you mentioned earlier, in that the volatility is very different, but the consent to use them is quite similar in a way that you really have to sign up and understand what you're signing up for, right?
I think that's absolutely right. And again, some of the risks we see in crypto are not new. So we have scam smart campaigns, we have invest smart campaigns, and that encourages you to see, right, something is promising me 25%, and they're not talking to me about what will happen if it goes wrong. You know, you should be suspicious of that. You should be thoughtful. And crypto's no different to traditional markets in that way. We just want to give investors and consumers the tools they need to make better decisions.
But that's fantastic, and especially in the crypto market, I mean, you need the best insight possible to make the most informed decisions. In terms of, you talked about the strategies and the campaigns that you were running to promote that. You have recently, the FCA have recently run the crypto sprint. Am I right in saying that? Can you tell me a bit more about what that is and what that hopes to achieve? Yeah,
we think that's a really new, exciting way to go about making this kind of policy. So in our crypto sprint, we got over 200 people together from across the industry, so firms, academics, governments. And using some of what we've learned in our innovation work, we set small teams real policy problems, and in a kind of sprint, fast working style, they come back with answers. We find that's a really rich way to gain insight, and hopefully we're getting good feedback from industry that it's a collaborative way to work. And we think for something as complicated and fast moving as crypto, it's a great way of working.
Will there be a next stage of that crypto sprint? Will it evolve into another campaign?
I think so. So we found it a really productive way of working. We've already published the lessons learned on our website, so everybody can read those. And I think we're very likely to use that kind of way of working again as we work through regulating what I've said is a complicated landscape in crypto.
Well, exactly. But if we look at it outside of crypto, do you think that same approach could be applicable to other areas of financial services?
I don't see a reason why not. We have always tried to push the envelope at the FCA. Because of our competition objective, it's in our blood to try and think that way. So in our innovation services, we pioneered sandboxes that are now copied around the world. We pioneered a digital sandbox. So it's in that spirit and culture that the crypto sprint came about. So I can see we could well use the tool in other innovative markets in future.
Well, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me today, Rich, and I hope you enjoy the rest of Fintech Week London.
Thank you so much, and enjoy the sunshine. I mean, you never get this kind of weather in London.
I'll try to. Oh, brilliant. Thank you.